All right. Hello, everyone. My voice finds you again in this unknown world we're in. And so I wanted to speak about the voices of ambition and really what are human beings doing in their inner lives. When it comes to organizational structure, the species has been capable of organizing the visible. When it has come to organizing the invisible, we do it through the contrast of the visible. In some sense, what is emptiness but the absence of fullness? And so are the voices of ambition arise when in the inner realms the ambition has been accessed. In other words, there are states and ways that the world is real before we open our eyes, and ways that the world is real in front of our eyes. And you know, the issue has been the voices of ambition arise when in the inner realms the ambition has been experienced to be real. Human beings have a very unique quality that their minds can actually probabilize ahead of the moment. Any person listening to me now, your mind is subconsciously attempting to figure out the next words. Ambition without vision is just sound. And you know what it is? The human being communicates what it is not actually experiencing, directly experiencing. Okay? Or let me say it differently. You know, the human being can communicate things it gets an incomplete experience of. Right now, I'm in a Starbucks coffee shop and I'm looking at a tree outside of my window. When I look at the present, the content is there. But if I was to envision how many birds and squirrels, throughout the lifetime of this tree would land on this tree. You see, when our mind, let me say it this way. The human intelligence is not an intelligence in reality, it's an intelligence that is using reality. We are users of life. We're not the actual life. We're using it. We're using our existence. Now the issue is, there's this consideration that man has forgotten his true nature. Hang on, guys. I'm trying to find this nice song, but okay. What can I really say? I find myself in moments wondering what it's all about, realizing I'm a frame of a film. And this world is going to outlive all of us, and that's magnificent. And the victory of the species, the greatest of all ambitions, is the greatness of what we are. All conscious creatures, wherever they are looking for themselves.
New local secondhand marketplace app.
Okay. What is ambition? Why do human beings care for more than the moment they're existing? We're all acting like we're materialists. We're all acting like physical entities. But we're non-physically moving it. We're living for non-physical moments. We're living ahead. That means, why aren't human beings just, YOLO, you only live once, just being in the present? Do you know? Every person in an urbanized area is living for their future. And so we just have to admit it to ourselves. That regardless of how spiritual you think you are, regardless of how much the world has just been a here and now, we're still living for the future, because that is the game. I said this playful story in one of the talks. This guy, climbs Mount Olympus and somehow gets to heaven and pops his head out of the clouds up to Mount Olympus, where all the gods are like at a, party or something. And then suddenly all the gods are like, what are you doing here? And the person's like, I made it. I discovered truth. I got to heaven. And and all the gods, imagine, are like, yo, you chose to go down there. Did you finish what you intended? There is so many beings, right? There is this classification of, for example, you look at wolves, you look at gorillas, lions, even, and just pretty much in nature, and it's as if there is a fierceness. The fierceness of life force, classifies us, right? And so there were, for example, alpha wolves and beta wolves. And the difference between the alpha wolf psychology and the beta wolf psychology was that the beta wolves were just being responsible for their self. Adorable little beta wolves, But it was the alpha that was like, yo, we're all something here. We're being something here. Where is everything going? Do you see? And so when it comes to a transcendental being, you see, we're still living at a time where when you talk about metaphysics or other dimensions, people are like, yo, man, I don't know. My whole life I've been, the idea of this is it has been hammered into my head. What else could there be? And so this is it is pretty much like, something that, some people like that sentence and some people hate it. Imagine all the explorers of this world. Imagine the earliest human beings. What we do, that all those people who worship the past. Let me tell you something bizarre. You're not living as an actual human being. What do I mean by this? I mean that when I think about, for example, religious, of course, religion is a very heavy topic. It's like no one man can have an opinion that's important, on religion. right? Because these things are like ancient, historic events that have been rooted in our cultures and even led to things developing in our culture. Religion is one of those things that it's been married into the species. But it was necessary, because there had to come a moment where human beings were like, yo, I came from a person, could the world have? Or human beings were like, yo, there are kings ruling over us, man. What if there was a king of the universe? What if there was an authority in a world that was meaningless? And this is where you realize that if your life has been based on how pretty objects are or how comforting subjects are, yet you know what it is? I've had a feeling, and it's strange, sometimes I feel I've had this from the beginning of my life, but sometimes I feel maybe at some point it happened in my life. But I have this feeling that it's as if I am not in the main room. I am declaring this as a being here. I am saying this doesn't feel like the only room. It's like, it's like history or human history, or how would I say it? It's like time is like a real estate agent, and it has brought these mysterious forms of mysterious momentum. I don't know what the plural of momentum is. Momentum. Or maybe it's just momentum. I don't know. I have words, and kind of you will become a type of fool in this life. Now, what kind of fool you become is important, okay, And then this is the final one where you feel like a fool in the presence of the world. That means I've had certain moments in my life where I've been alone and I've done something and it backfired, right? Like I didn't notice something. I did something stupid and nobody was there, and I'm like, man, what am I, a fool right now? There's been moments where I've become, the foolish one in front of others, the one who didn't know. Well, I asked myself, who was I living it for? Or who am I living it for? And one view is that when I was younger, super young, when I look at it, I was living for others. Then something strange happened. Instead of living for myself, I decided to live for my world. To whatever capacity. But what I'm saying is that I feel I have appeared as a fool in all three. Which is a strange way of saying I feel I have been scolded by myself. I have been scolded by others, especially when I was young. And and I have been scolded by the world. And these are moments where only my eyes knew why was something happening to me. There's this very incredible story. I don't know if I can tell it accurately, but I'll attempt it. Evidently, there's this king, and this king was a great king, and he wanted to have mighty sons, that would in some sense enhance and carry on his empire. But for some reason, he tries to have 3 sons, and evidently these 3 sons, it's like it doesn't work out, right? The child passes away during birth. Right, or something happens, and this man, this king, he's like, I have reached it. I have become literally the conqueror of the world. Why is the future not allowing me to continue? And so he goes and finds a sage, and this enlightened sage, one who in some sense is fulfilling the rest of his lifetime as a universal self on the planet. And he says, "O king, if you knew how this world was interweaved, how all our lives are connected, and how many lifetimes ago." And sorry, I forgot something about the story, I just remembered. The king could remember 3 of his past lifetimes, but he couldn't remember beyond that. Do you know? And so this sage says, in your very far lifetime, there was a time where, you were like this hunter and you hunted a bird, and you killed this bird, and the 3 of the chicklets of the bird died. And so in this lifetime, you became a king, and so your sons died, or something like this, right? It's an ancient Vedic story about the depth of karma, pretty much. And so anyways, We find ourselves in a world, we find ourselves equipped with a biological system and equipped with a cognitive system. The cognitive system, since our childhood up till now, based on the people around us, the media around us, the culture around us, and everything has been in some sense conditioned. Right? So what I'm trying to say is that you have a biological body, and treat your body like soldiers. To me, every cell of my body is like, enlisted in my command. So there is, in some sense, the body, the physical reality is like the army. And so the mind is like the commanding officer, and the soul, poetically, is like the general. And the general is watching the battlefield, but it is not on the battlefield, or it's at the edge of the battlefield. It's watching from a place where it can notice the different pieces move on the chessboard. Life carries us to where we can be useful, really. If it's smart. If reality knows what it's doing. That's the feeling I have, really. I look at life and I'm like, okay, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe others don't know what they're doing. But oh world of worlds, you better know what you're doing. Because why have we all attended? You see, it's a value, it's an evaluation problem. We have valued ourselves so little that small events can happen to us. We have, in some sense, blocked out the greatness of that the ancients were cultivating. You know what? Let me tell you what has happened on this earth. The type of human beings that you see in 2023, their ancestors had cultivated maturity of another dimension. Their inner realms were pretty much my I guess metaphysical analysis of why our imaginations appear to be an invisible overlaid room upon reality, or what the concept of the spirit realm or that beyond the veil of the senses implied, was that really this curtain between the dimensions, it was solid, it was transparent, and it became solid. So you know what that means? Something closed off the human world. Something did it, whether it was divine will or maybe hidden divine beings like ninja souls that landed on earth, did something important, nobody ever saw them and they left. Maybe there's so many silent heroes on earth, so many. And the thing is that life, I think, there was a time where I was like, yo, what does religion mean? Life is a test. I'm a kid at school. I don't like tests, But then I realized life is a different kind of test, in the sense that once something is capable, the opportunities arise. I'll give you an example. For example, for me, the reason I haven't, gone into the public and all that is because some part of me didn't feel that, Some part of me felt that, there had to be a Batman of the podcasting realm, So I'm going to speak about ambition here. I'm going to share the viewers my approach and attitude to ambition, and something I would appreciate from the viewers is that if you feel like I'm someone who's missed out on something or maybe has a wrong perception, correct me. All the things they say, what is the difference? What makes a smart person? And a smart person is someone who learns from their mistakes. And a wise person is someone that, since they have learned from a mistake, doesn't make the mistake anymore. Now, I am trying to wonder what sort of mistakes have potentially occurred on a transcendental level. What has gone on that man has forgotten his inner life? its preciousness, its access point, the portal to the gods that is behind our eyes. Or excuse me, the portal to the heavens. I mean, the concept of God is really, it leads to an inconceivability. You know, if somebody says, what is God? I'll be like, somebody found an inconceivable portal. They found, in some sense, the lighter that lit the candle in the dark room. You see, because there is this idea of the infinite regress. And so the idea of the infinite regress fallacy is the suggestion that when you wonder about cause and effect, and so right, 2023, this is like an effect, and so let's say of the world, and we're trying to go back to its cause, it becomes this strange situation that if we think that something was created, it becomes an infinite regress. So the idea is like, who created that? And then who created that? And then who created that? Right? It's an infinite regress. We're returning to the origin of it, but it's infinite, right? So the only idea appears that makes this world make sense, in some sense, through a sort of philosophical perspective, is that the original domino, the first cause, was not uncaused. Right? So it's the idea of God. Many religious people use this to counter, it's a sort of philosophical argument that connects to the cosmological argument. So the idea is, why is there design here? Design was created, who created the creator that created all the design? It doesn't make sense, right? So in some sense, an inconceivable being makes sense, even though it's not fathomable to our minds. Mankind has answers to questions that he doesn't understand, but sometimes he has the answers. Sometimes he has the answers, he doesn't have the questions, Jesus Christ. These ads are like unnecessary injecting thoughts. Anyways, what can we say? What can we do in a world that we're in once, in this form that we are? What is the value of human intelligence? And so what is a sort of conceptual analysis of a human ambition? So this is where I'm going to bring out the notepad. And guys, I've had this attitude since, it's been years now. I think it's been, I developed it in my teens, where I have had this feeling, You know what it is? It's like a person staring at an unknown world, and you're looking at a box that you don't know what's in it. And so the cool thing about life is that it takes you forward. It goes forth regardless of what happens. And so all gifts will be open. All greatness reaped. We are not just living for ourselves, we are living for our species. And so here, the voices of ambition. The communicators, it literally means this, the communicators of inner worlds. Or future worlds. Which are inner. If you notice, everything is inner. You look at the greatest inventors. From within themselves, they discovered the invention and they built it. You look at all the prophets, from within themselves, they attained the wisdom, the insight. And so what does this mean? This means the future is being manufactured from behind our eyes. This world is in a masquerade, every being just playing their part, not realizing how long this theater has been going.
Can I get a veggie strawberry side lemonade?
You know, there's this something hilarious in yoga, in Vedanta. The yogis, the ancient yogis, they would go to these enlightened gurus, these liberated individuals, and they would say, liberated individual, how can I become liberated? And the liberated and these enlightened beings would say, you would have to remember, you would have to find your divine memory. And your divine memory is your life as a universal entity, not as a human entity, as a universal being. What that means is that my body is new, but the space where these words come from. Isn't it fascinating? Even if space wanted to change, it has no shape to. So what does this mean when it comes to destruction and creation? These are abilities of the space being. When it comes to maintenance, this is the ability of the physical. There's ways the world moves that our eyes are unfamiliar with. And so they may be unfamiliar to the persona, but there are ways, and let me tell you what happens. Fear will reveal itself at some point, and the person has to look at the sky, look at their world, press pause on the video game of life, and make an instant decision, yes or no. And the answer should be yes, in the sense that you need to go forth. And once you understand everything goes forth, you cultivate contentment. You know, it's a different speed. I'll give you an example. Imagine like 10 miles per hour, 20 miles, 30 miles, 40 miles. So at 10 miles per hour, you're having a human experience. If your mind is moving, imagine, just for the sake of example. And then let's say at 20 miles per hour, you're having a mystical experience. At 30 miles per hour, your mystical experience is more real than the outer realm experience. At 40 miles per hour, your mystical experience becomes unreal to you. And imagine at 50 miles per hour, you experience yourself as a presence, and the idea of presence is primordial. So what this means is that the present was here first, the past and future entered, and then that past and future discovered the present, and they forgot their past and future. The reason you are feeling like a new being now is because you have forgotten not who you were, but what you were. So ambition, what is it? It's what we want, but also what the world deserves. You know, there came a moment where I thought, like, life, what is the point of realizing, the ego is hollow? It's as if, I found myself in a moment where I was like, logos, consciousness, divine force, whatever it is that is here, the other tenant in the room of manifestation. Why have you opened my eyes to the linguistic simulation? Why have you opened my eyes to the inner realms? Why have you shown me that there are rhythms that man can move where he becomes a selfless force? Because some forces are too fast to have a personality. That time may come. There may even come a time where the intelligence that is experiencing itself through the human being will be so fast that it cannot maintain a human body. And it would be as if like that yogi who in some sense sat down and meditated to such a degree where the yogis were known to self-immolate, not like as an act of protest, but they would reach a certain point that their inner life would give them access to the true nature of reality. And when they are present as the true nature of reality, let me tell you something hilarious that happens. You access energy more than this body can hold. In samadhi states, most likely, people are experiencing that. In my vision, it's actually literally like I'm not me, and that's why the moment can be regardless of what I think. You see, we are living lives of shape. We are creatures of shape. And when it comes to the mind and the inner realms, the shape they tell you becomes the story of your life. And imagine that there has been, in some sense, an ancient war between those beings that entered Earth and they wanted to hypnotize and make the species fall asleep. And then there were those who were born, who their presence, in some sense, was here to awaken. So do you know what that means? That means we are at the, literally, in the poetry of the War of Worlds. Where the sheep want to remain sheep and the lions cannot stand to break the fence. They cannot wait to break the fence. And so you know what happens? A very honorable and advanced humanity in the darkest hour will arrive. That means the reason we don't see great human beings now, because they are still in transit. They have veils like seas to cross. But they will come. There are many advanced communicators in this realm. Many. There are non-physical beings who exist as guardians of the earth, the stewards of the earth. What that means is that not only the stuff, the physical phenomena has self-organization, but the space does as well. And so, you know, I'm someone who, what can I say? My inner life sought a fictional desire to such a degree that the non-fiction seemed slow, you know? That means I'm that human being who when I close my eyes, reality has a different speed than when my eyes are open. When my eyes are open, it's like existence is waiting. But when I close my eyes, it's been waiting for itself. Let me tell you something hilarious in my childhood I experienced, you know. Pretty much my family went back and forth between Iran and Canada. And so up to grade 3 I was in Canada, and then I go back to Iran up to grade 6. And in those years that I'm in Iran, it was with the same class, the same students. It was like a classroom was growing with each other for 5 years, you know. And so all the kids in the classroom were somehow so mischievous, so rebellious, because in some sense, because I had lived in Canada, when I went to Iran, I couldn't attend a normal Farsi school. So there was a school called Tehran International School, represent, you know. And this was a school for all those kids. Like literally, it was my parents had come back from Canada. There was a kid from Sweden there. You know, the son of, what do you call it? The son of the ambassador of Nigeria and Egypt were in the classroom. Do you know what I'm saying? Pretty much all those kids who couldn't read and write in Farsi were there in the Farsi language. So anyways, this classroom of mine, oh my God, we had this teacher which we were driving crazy, right? And this was a teacher who anytime he stepped out of the classroom, all the kids in the classroom, like psychopaths, would start slamming on their table. Can you imagine the teacher leaving the classroom to go talk to the principal or something, and all the kids like psychopaths hitting the table and making noise? The moment the teacher comes in, everybody stops. So the teacher doesn't know who did it. Oh man, good times. But there was that feeling in that moment where the teacher was outside of the hall and everybody was slamming on their table, where that felt larger than life. It felt that when human beings, even though we may be like, yo, we don't like laws, we gotta break laws, you know, they're trying to make everybody equal, right? But on some level, you know, the issue is, it's the issue is of balance. Do you know what I'm saying? Imagine in a parallel universe of Earth, there was a religion called Appleism, and everybody had to eat apples till the end of their life. Imagine there was a religion called Orangeism. Everybody only ate oranges till the rest of their life. Do you know? And there was a religion called, let's say, Bananaism. Everybody only ate bananas in that religion, right? And so that was their faith and belief. And imagine, right, in a parallel version of Earth, these three religions became ancient cultures, right, and their grandkids, and it led to art and history and civilization. And now imagine far in the future, it becomes a Hunger Games, right, where there's like, imagine 1/5 of the people on the planet are like, no, we gotta only eat apples, the rest is blasphemy, the rest is like, no, oranges, and the world is fighting over what we thought was truth, not realizing that all the fruits were accessible. That in all the religions, it's about your connection with an inconceivable source. What does it have to do with anybody else? Do you understand? This is what I don't understand. I understand the value of religion, right? I don't understand the enforced promotion of it. You know, I don't understand the rampages that followed, right? Because to me, I'm like, don't you have faith in God's creation, that you have to change God's creation for it to be okay? Where is your faith in the actual world? And this doesn't mean that what we are naturally from the beginning is perfect either, right? It's a very complex situation. There's 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere, and the advanced communicators are the ones who are suddenly waking up and they're like, yo, we have not planned ahead. If you ask human beings what's going to happen in a couple thousand years, they're going to be like, we're going to go extinct probably, man. I don't know, you know. That's the conviction. It's as if that was an answer that was enough. You see, the alphas of the future generations are going to be those that are caring for the presence of their species, not their own little classification group of it. What's the freaking point? You know, sometimes I wonder, you know, it would be so hilarious. Imagine you took all the people from one cultural program in one part of the world and all the people from another cultural program, and imagine you replaced them instantly and they both had to adjust. Do you know, and over time they would adjust. And that is it. You know, we pick up structure, we pick up a sort of format, do you know, a sort of outline of reality, and we shape ourselves like that, and we hope others like us. Right? But in reality, we have to acknowledge we are unknown beings. You know, you have to have the fearlessness to realize that there is a huge chance no one will ever see who you are the way that you see yourself. And that's where the strength starts building. You see, somebody who said, they asked somebody about, you know, maturity, but in the context of a warrior. And the person said maturity is, in some sense, all these small victories that suddenly lead to a moment of where the strength is mature. Do you know what I'm saying? That it's like the confidence of the victory has been built up throughout the years. I know that I'm a being that if I die on this planet, and it's the moment I die, if the inner realms, if language cannot touch me, you know, I think in my, if I a part of me feels like I'm done with being a shape in after this life. But if I do appear, do you know, it would be a reality where language and minds would, in some sense, how can I tell you? It's as if once you see what's behind the mask, you will remember what has been behind the mask of every lifetime. You will feel truth. Not as stuff that conditionally it's gonna be like the planets aligned and the dudes found truth. No. you closed your eyes and you opened them to a world that could never fail. That's what the advanced civilization means. That something wants to see the human species grow up. You know, like, think about every parent. I'm not a parent, but you know, there's moments where I've thought, like, you know, the whole world is like, you know, feels like a child. And you know, there was a time in one talk where I said I felt like I was born, you know, 400 years too soon. But I know this. That there is something within every human being that once it stops lying in all dimensions of its being, it will feel a strange freedom. Do you know? You know, there's people talk about like isolation, being conscious, loneliness, being unconscious. And then, you know, I would say I have experienced so many different types of loneliness. So many different types where I am left with nothing other than staring at my being. It's as if the life was like, okay, you're a problem solver, kid. You like puzzles, huh? I'm going to give you the greatest puzzle of them all. I'm going to give you to you. And guess who the truth is up to? What are we living for, dear viewers? Are we living for objects? Are we living for subjects? Or are we living for their potential? Do you know what I'm saying? There will be many great, you know, I would say poetically celestial friends in the timeline of this species, you know. Simply because we've had moments of humor, playfulness, kindness, benevolence, graciousness on this earth. Just because we've had those moments, we have given ourselves an opportunity to receive those moments in great dimensions, greater dimensions. And so, dear viewers, or even if you're a religious person hearing me right now, you would like to go to heaven, incredible. But what would it be like? Imagine from a religious perspective, if you're a theologian right now hearing me, just imagine God in some sense sent man, in some sense is testing all the souls on earth, do you know, all the human beings, and imagine what the A+ of this test would be. Imagine in the divine presence of a great species. Do you see, for me, I was looking for it for a while. I was looking for ultimate power, and not in the sense like I wanted to wield it like a dumbass, like but in the sense that I wanted to know what is the most powerful archetype in conscious manifestation. I wanted to know what is the top of the hierarchy in existence. And God is beyond existence, so that's not the top of the hierarchy in existence. God is beyond existence. And so, in many religious traditions, it's the prophets, which I totally understand, you know, because people try to tune into their light rather than their shadow. You know, everybody has a light and shadow about them, by the way. You know, if you're having a bad day, you could listen to these Mr.Within talks, and you might even, aim your hatred at me. But the incredible thing about life is that truth is untouchable. This is why liars like hyenas can be around a lion, right? And if the lion tries to be a hyena, it feels off. It's not in its nature to deceive. It's in its nature to present itself as what it is, which is the noblest of acts. Because what can we do? It's like they told the young kid, you can't be, it's like you can't be as good as a prophet, and you can't be as, and you can't be as evil as, like, let's say, the most evil archetype. But in some sense, it's like the kid is trying to dodge hell and try to get to heaven, not realizing that it is slowly becoming unnaturalized. I when I look at it, and it's not the fault of, like, religion, it's not the fault of one ideological system, it's not pretty much anybody's fault, it's just a byproduct of law. Many people wonder when the human species became soft, when it discovered language and when it discovered law. Why is it that we human beings can very peacefully go to the mall and go shopping, right? Because of law. That means you could be someone, if back in the day you wanted to go into the market, like, let's say, your brother or your father had to be with you, if you were a girl. So what I'm saying is, like, if you think about it, we're living in a realm where the savageness has been reduced due to the subjective acceptance of every person's understanding that if we follow the laws, we get the privilege of living in a cool place. Now, I'm also a person who was born in the country Iran, and when religion and politics infuse, to me, I have seen the madness. It's like, that's blasphemy. Do you know? I don't know why, but to me, when you mix religion with politics, let me tell you what happens. Politics is about taking, about dominating, and in some sense, religion is about submission, surrendering. This is why when I see religious politicians, and I'm like, okay, you're neither a good politician and neither a good religious person. You're an incredible actor, so here's an Oscar. But really, I am waiting to see the leaders of mankind, in some sense, speak about their visions of the future. Because we're in some sense electing politicians for 4 years, right? Every 4 years, like, they're changing, right? The politician comes and says, in these 4 years, I'm going to do this. Vote for me, please. And people are like, gosh, is this guy leading us? But they have not, in some sense, imagined a human being that, like, this is the politician I'm waiting for, right? The politician that comes and says, you might think I'm a politician, but I am a gardener, and the policies I am planting, in some sense, will be the trees that our future generations will be smiling under. Do you know what I'm saying? It's as if we need to see. The thing is, especially in the realm of communication, when it comes to communication, it's all about world transference. When I understood this, then I was like, okay, sure, I might not have, the king's English, when it comes to pronunciation, I might not be able to pronounce the English words like an English king, but in some sense, it's all about code. To be honest, I am a programmer, but every day I wake up and with my voice I program in the void, and then I go to sleep. And this program sometimes is heard by the other side, And there's been moments, guys, you don't know if in so far 2,000 of these talks are uploaded, but there's like, I got a bunch in like, okay, that's a long story, I'll say it, but there's way more than 2,000. And do you know how many talks I have lost? So when you give like 2,000 talks, I have lost maybe like around 300, 400 talks. Right? And there's been numerous times where I've recorded a talk and I've said something where at the time I felt I would never be able to say this again in this way in this lifetime, right? And then I looked at the talk and the file wouldn't open, right? And then I realized, oh yeah, that was just for the world. Right now my voice is extending to cyberspace, and I thought about it. What am I going to do? Am I going to just give talks every day till the day I die? And then I thought, the Buddha had a silent sermon. Sri Ramana Maharshi, he says silence is also conversation. I feel I'm reaching that point where I've had the luxury as a transcendental being to just sit back and speak. But recently it feels like my heartbeats feel a bit louder. And sometimes I confuse my own heartbeat with the heartbeat of the world. There are so many beings on this planet. So many strategies need to be implemented that we don't have time for fear. It's as if they asked the person, how are you so fearless? The person's like, I don't have time. Do you know, because there's so many different types of fear that it's like by the time that I'm paralyzed by one fear, it's like so what? There's thousands more. You know, every day you could find something, see something that scares you, or you could see something that in some sense gives you the opposite. You know, when I was younger, don't think like I'm the bravest person ever. I've had moments of cowardice. You know, and in my youth I was a shy person. That was the first cowardice. That was one of my first defeats in life, right, where I felt I couldn't be myself in the outer realm. So I was like just this observer. I was pretty much living as a spirit in a body, not a spirit that had realized it's come to be itself here, right? That was the thing that was stole. I would say the society and culture and conditioning stole from me when I was young. Right? And what it stole from me was that I was here to be myself. So many people think about what confidence is. Figure it out. Confidence is how nobody has a DNA like you. No being like you has ever existed. And if you have mindfulness and cultivate ability of concentration, you know, one of the biggest things in this, which I've since childhood I've had, and sometimes I've thought it's like, is this a cause of my like thinking in the inner realms? I have OCD and whatever. And then I realized, no, I'm a being that can exist in a moment where I can free my attention. Everything is in the presence of the living. So the idea is like you live as whatever you are, you stay true to your, not yourself. When I say stay true, you're true to yourself, I'm not saying lock yourself down in a set of unchanging beliefs about yourself. That's not confidence. Confidence is like a neutral observance and then looking at the situation again and then responding. You know? So the voices of ambition are really human beings that have envisioned things that are beyond them, that are not solo, that it's not a one-man job, it's a 8 billion members of a species job, right? And what can I do? Do you know, I can't build an advanced civilization right now. I don't have that many subscribers and members. Do you know? So what can I do? That's when you become a bird on a branch, being like, advanced civilization, anybody out there, advanced civilization, and for eons. How many Mr. Withins are out there in the realm? Sometimes I wonder, you know, how many human beings who suddenly realize what their species deserves and has forgotten. Do you know, it's like, it's one thing to have like the creatures on a planet act like sheep when they're lions, but you know, when you have in some sense a species, a world acting like a sheep. Do you know what I'm saying? We are the lions of Earth. We are the lions of the concrete jungle. We are the guardians of all lesser dimensions, and we should start acting that way. If you're someone who has, let's say, done something in this world which is wrong, I don't know who will listen to these Mr. Within talks, but if you're someone who's done something wrong, vow yourself to be a protector of the realm. Do you know what an advanced being is? It's a being that is free as a body. It's a being that is free as a mind. And it's a being that realizes what is noticing both of them at the same time is where their freedoms come to. Do you know? It's like the person danced and then their mind danced and then they realized their soul was being the world the whole time. How else can we be in it? We are it. You know, we think we are the simulation, but that is our shadow. 10% battery. Someone in the chat section says emotional maturity question mark, and then says we won't get mind effed if we can wake up with cleansed hearts. No, the cleansing heart, it's not like your heart is like a dirty dishes you gotta wash, you know, with a sponge, like with a sponge of faith. Like it's not it's not like that. Do you know? The cleansing of the heart is you realizing and abiding by your true nature, which is another way of saying you have stopped as a being to falsify yourself. This doesn't mean you stop doubting. I mean, I'm not saying like doubt things, but I'm saying there's a difference in feeling, right? I wasn't always in this. I entered it, so now I can talk about it. When I was younger, I wasn't being me. I was being what I thought me should be. But now like life has reached a point where it's as if like I can be nothing other than me. What else can I be? And so it's the advancement of the species. That is the greatest ambition. You know, in 2011, I was still one of those guys who are like, yo, I want to have, you know, a mansion, be like Hugh Hefner. Do you know what I'm saying? I remember I'd seen the show Californication, like, you know, I wanted to be like something like that. And then the biggest thing I realized is that in all the times that I tried to be something else, I missed out on who I could have been, who I was. Do you know? That would be Mr. Within's greatest gift to me. In all these years of giving these talks, I have been realizing I am not any of them. We're all living for the advanced humanity. And you know, there was a time where I thought this being born 400 years too soon was upsetting, but then I realized it was a blessing. The world has gifted me. The world has gifted me with that moment in history where the idea of the advanced civilization is entering people's minds. I literally looked up in this AI software about the idea of the advanced civilization, and I will say, aside from Kardashev, and the Kardashev scale, it's like human imagination has been on pause. Oh great, what have human beings been occupying their attention with? There are macro problems and there's micro problems, and life is a limited time. If you're not a problem solver in this world, you're most likely a problem in this world. We are designed to overcome the challenges of our species. Just like in Star Wars, there was the saying, the Force is strong in that one. The Force is very strong in the human species. And the reason that statement was uttered in Star Wars was because that statement referred to destiny, as if it is not that person's time. You know, I can see the karma of so many different things that if somebody said, Mr. Within, do you think a meteor is hitting Earth? I'll be like, no way. Even if the meteor was hitting Earth, it feels sorry that it's hitting Earth, and it'll be like, yo, there's too much going on this planet. I'm going to change directions, you know. Really what it is I have noticed pretty much this is my strategy, right? If somebody's like, yo, what is this guy doing? Like, what's his motive? My motive is to get the species to be able to discriminate between the inner realms and outer realms. The moment the species can do that, 80% of mental illness will be solved on this planet. And the moment they teach children that you can discriminate between your inner realms and outer realms, right? A lot of psychosis, a lot of insanity is this. The person is in a world that is not the world they're in. And so that's your inner realms. Everybody has inner realms, but we manage it. We notice that the inner realms change, you know. You know, you can say, like, let's say you want to snap people out of a fragmented psyche. how you snap people out of the idea of the fragmented psyche is that you start off by saying, okay, when you look at a human being, whether the human being thinks it's one personality or it thinks it's multiple personalities, that's what a fragmented psyche means. Right? Imagine, the psychologist looking at the person who has the fragmented psyche, the psychologist, the therapist, and being like, okay, buddy, let's look at it. When you see a human being, when you wake up, like, how many personalities do you have? And imagine the guy's like, yo, I got 20 personalities when I wake up. And the therapist is like, okay, man, which one am I speaking to now? And it's like, you're speaking to the one called civil. Whatever, I'm just making this up, right? And so this example, so the psychologist, imagine the psychologist says, okay, and you think you're a bunch of people right now, and then the psychologist says, do you also see how it's possible that there are people out there who think they're just one thing? And then the person who has fragmented psychology says, yeah, I can see that, right? And then the psychologist says, do you see how when people sleep, in deep sleep, they don't have any psychology? They don't have any personality. It's as if you're absent and you wake up, regardless of a good or bad person you are, regardless of if your mind is fragmented, shattered or not, In deep sleep, there is no self. So what does that mean? That means your sense of self is a creative responsibility. And if you have it by your second nature, if you've never thought about yourself and everything's been going great, enjoy the wave of karma. And learn from it, add to your momentum. It's like the wise, let me tell you, they say a smart being learns from their mistake. So imagine from a transcendental perspective, from the Buddhist yogic perspective, a soul reincarnated on earth and they realize their mistake of reincarnation. And imagine this being no longer had any sort of karma, whether good or bad. Why? Because truth was alone. Truth has never went anywhere. This is why in religion they tell you to repent. This is why in meditation they tell you to sit still and silent, be quiet. And all mysticism is methods to get you to see that you are not what you thought you have been. You're way more. And you are also something that you don't know. I don't know who I'm going to be in the next 10 years. I might be a world-class hand model. I might be that person who walks in the streets and people look at my hands and they're like, it's him. I'm joking, guys. I'm being silly. If I'm a hand model in 10 years from now, I'll be like, yo, logos, other realms, requesting backup, something went wrong. Oh man, we're living in such a strange world. We're living in a world that everything's becoming digital. Terence McKenna was so wise. He was so smart that he saw that there were certain natural institutions of the human being under attack. And Terence McKenna said something in one of his talks, right? And he was like, they can't control sex and they can't control imagination. These are things that are the freedom comes from within. But guess what's happening? They realize that this creature, when it doesn't know what it is, it likes shiny objects, and pretty much like you dangling something shiny in front of the cat, or a laser beam which the cat follows. Like I saw this video, this guy had a cat, he got one of those laser pointers, and he pointed the laser at like he was getting ready to sleep. He pointed the laser pointer at the light bulb, at like the light switch, and the cat jumps and like hits the light switch. I wouldn't be surprised if all human beings are transcendentally being all utilized for something. It's weird. In this talk, I wanted to kind of, I thought it was about time to establish a new sort of archetypal relationship for spirituality and metaphysics. And I wanted to say, imagine there was a transcendental corporation. So I thought about how do I explain this to viewers, and I figured it out, and I can tell you. And there's 3% battery, so this is gonna die, so I gotta say it super quick, oh my god. Imagine the human species becomes so evolved, so advanced, that we build spaceships and starships that have stealth. And imagine there's a company on Earth that this is in the far advanced future, where its employees go to other planets and try to establish human contact. Now imagine our advanced spacecraft are like, imagine a space city filled with like employees of this company. Let's call it Contact Co, you know, or Disclosure Co or something, you know. And so these employees from Disclosure Co, you know, from this corporation on Earth are on these advanced cities, and these advanced city has gone to a planet with creatures similar to Earthlings, like evolving Earthlings, and we've become invisible in their sky. And imagine one of those creatures suddenly every night stares at the sky like there's something there, even though nothing appears. And imagine suddenly one of these creatures begins to communicate with us. For it would be equivalent into coming into contact with a transcendental agency that has employees, that has employers, that has departments. Do you see what I'm saying? What the human mind has done. That's one thing, strange metaphysical thing that capitalism has given us. An ability to perceive greater dimensions as corporations. As if, imagine God was the CEO of reality, was the owner of the realm. And the archangels were like the heads of departments. Archangel Gabriel was the head of communication. Archangel Michael was the head of external affairs. Archangel, the one that fell, was the head of, imagine, human resources. I've written a script actually called Offices of the Afterlife. I've talked about it in other things, but it's a movie that depicts this to some degree. So anyways, thank you for listening. Share, subscribe, comment, like, and join. And the sentence that I am left with at the end of these talks is, rise, mankind, rise. Because that is why we are here. To see how advanced our whole world is.